Good morning. Good morning. Happy VPR Thursday. I'm so excited to be here as per usual with the one and only, the fifth fresh DJ FMI.
I'm trying VPR. It's bright and early, but y'all put a smile on my face. So we here.
Facts. We are definitely here, partner. What's going on in your land?
Oh man, well, we started up the stream VPR. I don't know if we still in retrograde, but life been lifing. But
We
I'm
are. We are. We got like 2 more days where we're easing out of retrograde, but it has not been easy. Not for me either, partner. I think it was Libra rising too, to be honest with you. I think that's why we got hit so hard.
well, other than me being, sick for the last week from before, and I know last week I discussed that, but I'm finally feeling better VPR for the people like you. Before hopping on
out here, y'all.
Before hopping on stream, though, this retrograded and broke my $300 DJ headphones. I don't know how. I haven't seen them in a week. I take them out my bag, set them up for VPR, and I just hear snap. So, but we still gonna rock out, even though it's plugged in and I'm not listening to it. My heart's sinking inside a little bit.
He died a little on the inside. It was a somber day on VPR.
The start of a somber day. I definitely want to shout out last week's guest, Super MC. He touched our hearts, and after we finish up the show, I had so many calls and outpouring of just support for him and his music. Mm-hmm. And I love the way he had that rollout, Kiana. Let's speak about that rollout that he premiered on VPR for
the character, right?
Action figure VPR. This is the first rapper that I've been met in person. I know Travis Scott had his, but I didn't know Travis Scott. I know Super MC. You know what I mean?
The action figure, the vinyl, right? Like all in. You get the poster.
Yes, and I have a few songs that I like off the album. I'm going to add them to the Spotify playlist. I already added one of the records. But a few more records grew on me. So if you into that real hip hop, that touch you feels like Tupac 2023 for me.
Yeah,
for me. I'm not gonna tell you what you hear.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's what I feel, and that's the grittiness, and that's the rawness. But it's also the knowledge, and it's also the intellect, right? And those are the things that Pac brought to the table that were different. Because I mean, his mother was a Black Panther, right? So he was deep rooted in civil justice and injustices, right? And the plight for people of color, amongst so many other things, being poor, having his mother go on drugs at some point in his life, right? Like being in the streets, street life, all of the exposure to that, it really does make you so multifaceted. And then to be able to play that musically, it's a powerful gift, man. And we sat there as our boy went off the head and went ham about DJ FMI and Kiana the Goddess right in the studio on like some 2-minute ill freestyle. I was just like, whoa.
And VPR last week, it was hilarious because when I was giving, Super MC his flowers, I said he's like Tupac, but then he's like, at least you ain't call me Silk the Shocker. I started dying, VPR. So many of y'all hit me up after the fact.
Why would we do you like that, fam?
You don't want to be like Silk the Shocker too much. It's a little too much. You know what I mean? Not knock on him, though.
No, but like that's not the vibe he's on. So,
and this before we have our guests starting to join up. We're going to talk for a few minutes before we bring them up. But
we're looking forward to today. Kory and JD in the building. Go and follow those guys.
With the new podcast. I can't wait to talk about it and see what they're going to be touching on. I'm excited.
Right. And for you guys that have been watching us, you've seen us in these deep rooted conversations with JD. So you already know what that kind of vibe is. Everyone loves when we bring JD. So now we've got a whole nother entity, different background, intellectual. I mean, I can't wait. I love the guests and the conversation that we have on our show, Truly Partner. It's such an honor always.
Yes. Kiana, I think they had an award show last night. I think there was MTV Awards. I'm not too sure. I didn't watch it.
Awards a long time.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Once BET wasn't ours, man, I was good, man. You know what I
mean?
Man. But there's some clips popping up online of the famous Selena Gomez. Lately, she's been receiving a lot of backlash since the MTV Awards because the camera panned to her Well, they were announcing the award winners for a certain category, and when they said Chris Brown like nominated for an award, her face said,
"Oh,"
and they got on camera doing that, and people online, they're dragging her like, "Oh, why you make that face?" This, that, and the third.
Right.
And she's like, "Hey, I made my face. I can make my face if I don't."
Good for her. Good for you, Selena. That's right. Don't get bullied by these online. You made a face. You made a face because that's the face I made. Oh well, you caught it.
I'm like, I'll see she made the disgust face.
Jeez.
Like where you can see your triple chin. Yeah, one of those. Like you smell something in the room that you was not supposed to be smelling.
Wow. She felt that. Okay. I didn't know it was like that.
I'm gonna try to bring up the clip just so you can see it. VPR, give a little bit of context to it if it doesn't bother you. It shouldn't bother you.
Right.
Everybody's entitled to what they want.
Feel how they feel. That's their business. Go away, Siri.
Go away.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. That's hilarious.
The entire
Chris
Brown.
Let me see if I can pull that up. Without
oh, I see it at the end. No, it's not even that face. It's that disgusted face.
When you smell something in the room, you're not supposed to smell.
I'm weak. Now that's funny. That's some funny shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she's got her reasons, and well.
I see so many people throw around the title, King of R&B when it comes to Chris Brown, and honestly,
here we go again.
He really would have had a VPR, but his past history just really put that to the side. And,
you know how I feel about the whole King. Well, let's discuss that. Let's bring everybody up to the table because we've got everybody in the room. We've got our family JD. We've got our new family Kory. So let's just bring you up to the stage virtually. Hi guys. VPR.
Hello,
everybody.
We're getting a little bit of an echo, guys. I don't know if we can just check our volume.
Is it me? Are you getting an echo from me?
I'm not sure. I was sure.
I'm hearing it now. Now.
Is it you?
It might be you. Move the mic back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. It's when they join them.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you clearly. I think it's your mic. FMI disconnect the mic and let's see. I think it's adding. Can we test your audio? Kory, are you on? Yeah, you're on mute.
I'm not getting it that way. All right. Let me just change this audio. I'm sorry, guys.
No.
Okay.
Are we good? I don't know. I feel like feedback and feedback.
Yeah, no, I have my thing muted, so I know it's not me.
Okay, I'm gonna go off.
Everybody can just mute their mic, and then we can just read it out that way.
Go ahead, set it off, partner. I'm gonna leave and come back.
All right.
Okay.
That should be good. We're not getting any feedback now. Can you turn on your mic, Kory, please?
How about now?
No feedback, and I think we should be good. I just have to wait till JD gets back. How are you doing, Kory? While Kiana's going to join back shortly.
So far, so good this morning. I'm awaiting a COVID-19 test.
Oh. Okay, we're
But
getting
wait a second. In the spirit of dad jokes, you're all safe because our computers all have antivirus.
I got VPR. I could appreciate jokes like that just to kick off the interview. Give me a little smile.
I love good dad jokes, right? Like they're so bad that they're funny.
I think JD, we're getting a little bit of feedback from your mic. So while you're not speaking, I'm just going to mute you, and whenever you want to speak, you can just hop back in your phone.
Okay.
All right, Kiana, you want to introduce our guest?
Okay, absolutely. So we have I'm hearing a lot of feedback. I think it's you, partner. No, you're muted. Is everyone muted? Everyone's on mute. Do you guys hear feedback? Okay, great. So we have Mr. JD Mass and his new partner in crime. They're starting a new podcast called The Same Difference, Kory May, who, I mean, your resume is a long list of things, from public speaker to comedian to analyst to, I mean, you've got everything under your belt. So I really just want to know how you guys even met each other and how this kind of dynamic was created between you two. I mean, I know how easy it is to speak to JD, so I can get that. But like, what was the vibe?
Well, I had participated in this show called The Moth. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the Moth Radio Hour. It's where you compete with timed, themed personal narrative. And I posted that I had won this Moth Grand Slam on LinkedIn. And then JD responds to me. And I'm thankful. I have no idea who this man is. And then I think he can take it from here.
So is my feedback okay now? Or so I was working with a gentleman named Kory May, spelled his name Korymay, and he's out of East St. Louis. And I hadn't talked to him in several years. And when your phone, LinkedIn, comes across and you see this little bitty head in the picture, all Black people look alike. And I thought that was who I was responding to tell him congratulations. And so as I'm responding to him, he's like, hey, how you been? He's just going along with it. So I say I moved down to Florida. We start a little conversation, and then he goes, I'd really like to get to know more about what you're doing. And I went, So we exchanged information, and then I had to really open it up and find out I'm not talking to the same Kory May I thought I was. And that's how we met.
Talk about a beautiful case of mistaken identity.
Yes.
These sorts of things happen, and you just run with them.
Yeah, for us, it was, he wanted to do a podcast idea. I've been wanting to do one. And we just kind of hung up and then reconnected and said, hey, what if we get to know each other? A Black man growing up in Iowa City and a white man growing up whose parents, raised him in and around the Black community, and talk about our experience growing up and how that shaped our lives, our perspectives, and then also talk about real world events going on from the perspective of the race card in which we grew up understanding. So
quite literally, we could have been each other's, or we could have had each other's lives if we had been 4 hours north or south of each other.
Right. I think that's the crazy part.
And VPR, I love the angle that they're approaching it with. Just the fact that you could be just separated by a few miles or a few states, but similar lived experiences. And when they're coming together on this idea, just with JD alone, when Kiana sat me down and she's like, hey, JD's getting ready to start a podcast, I was on board. I was excited to see who he would have as his other host. And I'm glad that we're speaking now. And I just can't wait to hear a little bit more of your story along with our viewers. I know they're looking forward to it.
Right. I think the great thing is that contrast, right? And I think that's something that you and I have as well as hosts, and it really creates this diversity and different angles from looking at things, but it still combines and it's cohesive, right? And it comes back to like the humanity and bringing things back to the same lens that we can all look through things if we expand our minds a little bit more. So tell me, what are some of the, like, have you guys set up topics that you want to talk about so far? Are you going to freestyle it? What is the first podcast going to look like? The first episode.
Great question.
Well, I just came from my high school reunion. Shout out to class of 93, U City High. So we're going to start kind of with Kory asking me about that experience and then talk about our high school experience, right? I was a minority in the fact that there were less than 10% white students in my high school. He had, I think, was one of 2 Black students in his. And so we'll start from there. And we really have purposely not gotten to know each other very much, just planning the details of an actual podcast, because we want to learn each other live in person on the podcast.
I would like to second that there will be more authenticity based on the fact that we are going to be responding in real time to the questions that we're hearing from each other, and creating a dialogue that allows just more truth.
I love that, because you're coming from a really organic place, right? You know,
Absolutely.
non-scripted, and just really that's how you connect with your audience as well, because everyone has a story, right? And sometimes we think our story is so unique to just us until we hear other people reach out to us like, wow, that's crazy. I've lived that. I've gone through that. My sister, my mother, right? You never know who you can connect with. So I know that this is going to be such a great podcast. When are you guys looking on launching the first episode?
October 9th. It is on a platform on what's called auto.media, which I'm hoping VPR comes and joins us on that platform, by the way. But they've developed a network called the Urban Core. Their most popular network has been based on Christian-based themes, and they've done very well for themselves, and now they're expanding, and Urban Core will be they're launching this network at the same time we're launching our podcast broadcast.
Well, JD, they got you muted right now.
Oh yeah, no, I
Sorry, I was saying it'll be on all the other, Spotify, iTunes, other platforms, YouTube as well. So,
hey, JD and Kory, when you guys, get the first episode out the way and it's situated and it's gonna go amazing, I would love to, have VPR sit down and we could just pick your brains, throw across a few topics and go from there. And whenever you guys find yourself out in New York, I have shows that you guys can come up and do the podcast live. So I would love to have you in studio so we could get that energy. And I'm excited for it.
Thank you. That's a tremendous opportunity. Looking forward to that.
Yes, Kory.
Yeah, and true fashion.
So,
we're always looking at collaborating. So you guys are my favorite media source, and as we can grow together, I look forward to that. So,
okay. Kory, we had JD on a few times before, and we just had a conversation talking about so many things, but we were just bringing it back to just a quick music tip. JD spoke about his upbringing where he worked alongside with a few people, notably. What music do you find yourself listening to in your free time and that you take to?
70s and 80s R&B. And I may start a little controversy here, but if Luther Vandross is at the top of the mountain, Alexander O'Neal is right behind him.
Now, VPR, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I gotta go do my research so I could, be versed on. Yeah, so you could put me on right here, Kory. I have not heard this artist. I'm not gonna lie to you. I know Luther Vandross. You know what I mean? I play them all the time. Never too much.
Give this man a heart attack.
I know. Kory, enlighten me on VPR Radio. We have the viewers watching. Enlighten me, my brother.
Oh, Alexander O'Neal, one of the smoothest baritones ever to grace God's green earth. His duets with Sherelle, Saturday Love, Never Knew Love Like This. Whew. His solo work, All True Man. The man's a bad man, and unfortunately, he has not gotten nearly enough shine.
Which happens all too often, right? I find that there's such a pick choose type of celebrity status, and it's not always based on the level of talent. We talk about this all the time, and especially now. I think 70s, 80s, 90s, 50s, 60s, you had more of a shot based on your talent, but of course the struggle back then was, especially if you were Black, it was going to be even harder. Not that it's not a struggle now, but it's all of these different things that are kind of lined up against you, right? But now it's more about the physicality of an artist or whatever, not even what they can bring to the table musically and whether they're talented or not. I mean, we hear so many albums drop that I feel personally are just redundant. And for me, being, I write R&B, I sing R&B, I've always loved R&B, so that's one of my favorite genres. But R&B is like the new hip hop. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
How did R&B become trap?
The R&B artist became tough. The streets have toughened the R&B artist now.
Right? I mean, so let's talk about that for a hot second. That music from the 60s through the early 90s was supposed to seduce. I'm a grown man. I don't need you to give me a DIY on what to do when the door's closed. I can muddle that out myself. But it's supposed to be seductive music. It's supposed to get you in the mood. You can romance, lay out that campaign, and that's good. Now it's just step by step explicit. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm the old guy on the porch with his wife beater and plaid shorts with the long knee-high socks, wearing white sandals, going, "Get off my lawn." I don't need all
quite a description.
I'm a storyteller.
I see that. I'm here for it. Well, yeah, if we look at music right now, of course, most of those songs are being sampled now, and the kids don't know it, so it's coming out as original. So they're taking essence of it. It's just vulgarity sells so much now, and there's no more mystique to an artist. Whereas with Prince and other artists, you would feel that. Like Michael Jackson, you felt that, even though I've seen him a lot. Yeah, but Kiana, but you remember that time when I told you I really thought there was 2 Michael Jacksons when I was younger? Yeah. That still shocks me till this day. I was really thinking it was a white Michael Jackson.
Well, I mean, there really were.
Yeah, I'm showing y'all my age at that point.
Stark. For sure, between the time I was, 4 or 5 years old to the time I was 9, it was a completely different Michael, for certain. So.
If Twista and Kanye never made, I got a white friend that looks like Michael Jackson, got a dark skinned friend that looks like Michael. If he never said that line, it would have never made me think like, wait. And I Googled it to go look. I'm like, oh, he got burned.
It makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah, and then I had to watch the movie to see how I'm like, oh, okay.
The original, right?
VPR, yeah. So, another topic that I was just thinking about. We're based out of New York, and right now, if you turn on the news anywhere, all you see is our economy and the migrant crisis. Now, JD. I just want to pick your brain about it. How do you feel about the migrant crisis across America, the U.S., and in New York City?
If you create scarcity for folks, especially that live in lands where there's actually an abundance of certain resources, and you continue to manipulate, and then you sell on how great this place is based on our debt and consumption and our constant production, looking like we have it all. And what do you expect but for people who need now, because you created a need, to come for where you took their resources? This whole thing is mind-boggling to me, that we can't just calm down enough to actually analyze what's truly happening and say, hey, we need some humanity across the board. What is going on? How can we learn about the earth enough to know what's happening in the habitats in which these people are coming from that makes them want to come to us? Because we aren't that great. People don't come to us for our humanity, for our welcomeness, for our, treatment of others. They don't. They come because we've hoarded the resources and tried to control things. And you're going to start seeing the pushback from BRICS to the African nations that are coming together. Yes, of course, we have the big bad army and we're willing to destroy, but some of that has to be dealt with from a humane standpoint.
Dovetailing on that, our foreign policy, especially in Africa, has been so terrible that Russia and China are filling the void and starting to create a stranglehold that will tie us off, cut us off from those vital resources. And that's a result of longstanding foreign policy. And if you look at Central and South America, the same thing happens. We are exploiting other countries for their mineral wealth. And of course, just like JD said, if you strip out everything that's good, save coffee and drugs, of course, they're going to go to the place where the opportunities lie. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's just universal balance, right? Like there's got to be a pushback, and how long until the scales are tipped, right? How many more generations of this type of behavior and these type of relations between all of these different nations, right? Especially when you look back at Africa, which is a superpower within itself, just based on the wealth of resources in those lands, which is why it has been raped and plumaged for centuries and centuries and treated the way that it has. But imagine the entire nation of Africa being completely empowered and unified. That's a different story. Now we're having a different conversation.
And I'm just amused. I really want to see who we're going to vote for when the time comes for election. I want to see what America wants to step forward with next. Because I'm watching people in Staten Island where I live, which I moved from there, and I'm watching some of the white folks that I know, like, hey, you put some of these migrants in our Catholic schools. And I'm just like, I'm looking at some of my friends and I'm like, isn't your grandma immigrant, my brother?
Right.
Like let's just remember that. Like my family was immigrants before they got here from Belize, and then got all their documentation and everything like that. So the humanity, I don't want to lose that in the situation. I just feel like it's getting out of hand now, especially in New York, where the sanctuary state is cool, and now everyone's turning around. No, we don't want migrants, but they're good to deliver your food. They're good to do the small jobs that
That's
you
right.
need.
They're good to hire to watch your kids, right? Undocumented workers, no problem. You know how many undocumented nannies there are? I can tell you myself, when I was going to hire a nanny, all right, without you using a service, so many undocumented nannies. So many.
And think about this, though. You're trying to tell your children that these people are who I'm putting to care for you, and then turn around and talk about them as if they're no good, dirty, whatever the hell.
That's right.
You're sending a message to your children, too. One, they learn from examples much more than they learn from your words. That's why we get pissed and say, do what we say, not what we do. But that's not how we learn. And two, you're telling them that your life is only worthy of these people that we think crap of, even though truly we actually know that they know how to care on a more humane and connected level than we can, which is why we use them. So this whole white supremacy legacy of just the lies of having less melanated skin and then developing those lies and all of that scarcity mentality, it's coming back. And the results of our youth is going through such levels of confusion for identity and it's not about gender as much as it's about, like, how do we identify with this nastiness that we don't want to be a part of, and who are we, period.
And yeah, VPR, you heard it here first. We're getting further away from it, and I'm just interested to see where it goes. Keith, I'm gonna let you kick off while I bring up our next.
So I want to know what we are going to be doing during the podcast. Give me more content, because we've got a little bit of time. I want to really delve into some of the topics that you're looking to discuss. Are you going to be live so that you can have input from the audience? Or are you guys going to be pre-recording? What's your formatting going to look like?
Currently, we're going to be pre-recording. We are not as polished as you two are, so we're going to be going through that process. But it's really about the stories. It's about the stories of us. It's about the stories that we've been through. It's about showing curiosity and learning about one another and demonstrating that. and then tackling the issues such as what you just mentioned and speaking on those things, right? If we were a little bit earlier, we would have been right on point for that that riverboat event that took place, and we could have had a great conversation about that, which we still can go back and have. But that's an example of something live that's happening. I just moved down to Florida. We had some KKK members out there at Disneyland screaming about Black people need to go back to Africa and all kind of goofiness. And so there'll be plenty of things to currently talk about. As we grow, we want to build it into a forum either that spins off into interviews or other things. But right now, we're just learning about each other, sharing our stories, and then talking about current topics.
There is a strong thread between the two of us with regard to sports and how sports reflect American life, or global life, if you will, how people are partisan based on their teams, who they root for, why they root for, and also the narratives that are being fed to us consistently about the teams that we love and support. That's going to always be there. So every aspect of American life is going to go through this conversation between JD and myself, the good doctor and myself. And we're going to have fun, a lot of fun. JD brought up the stories. We live on stories. And as a story, or as a culture, we pass down stories from generation to generation. And we're not going to let those stories die. Because our lived experience, much like what the fine lady said, it's universal. If I get anxious because I'm stopped in a store and I don't have my receipt, that's going to resonate with somebody else out in the audience as well, going, I know I paid for this, and now here we go. Am I going to get jammed up for this? Or is this going to be somewhere when I'm on the other side of the doors, I'm going to be able to exhale with ease and go, whew. How many times do we feel that? Every time that we get that feeling stuck in our throat, there's a conversation to be had. We're going to tell those stories.
So eloquently put. I mean, right? Yeah.
You sold me. I'm gonna listen. I'm like, sign me up. You got your first subscriber. I'm looking
and
forward.
Your second. And it starts on my daughter's birthday. It's Libra season. I mean, it's all good things to come of this for sure. So we want to know more about you guys personally as well. Let's start with you, Kory, because this is your first time on the show. So besides the podcast, again, I know that you do comedy, you are a public speaker. Tell us about your background, your history, and outside of the podcast, what you are looking to do in the next year or two.
Well, let's see. I was born and raised in Iowa City, Iowa. And much like what JD brought up, there were only 2 Black men that graduated from Iowa City high schools my senior year, and that was 1985. So it's not forever ago, although it was last century. Be easy, be easy.
I was just gonna say that because I was alive in 1985, so be easy, y'all. I know you weren't FMI, but you don't get to speak.
He had me at the only 2 Black seniors to graduate, and I'm like, right. What is going on in Iowa, everybody?
Right.
Black male seniors from Iowa City high schools. Now, there were Black women that graduated. But again, Iowa City is a university town. University of Iowa is here. And it's basically suburban living. So my parents my parents moved up here in the 50s, and we're one of the longer lived families in Iowa City. Black families in Iowa City. In terms of, let's see, I studied political science at the University of Iowa. After I graduated from college, I went and worked for a U.S. Senator on Capitol Hill for 3.5 years, started a family, moved to really small town America, got a divorce, and moved back home. Since then, I have worked on public speaking through Toastmasters, and now I'm telling stories as well. It's it's a pretty cool gig. In a year, I would like for this to be, millions of downloads. JD and I are still asking pertinent questions and having better and better dialogues with our audience, and hopefully creating the stories that make people think and change their behaviors.
That part.
Yeah.
Make them think and change their behaviors. Actionable change, right? Not just,
Absolutely.
okay, let me think about it, but we have very many parallels in that regard.
We've had 400 years of performative behavior. It's time for us to be doing substantial work.
That's right.
For example, everyone would lose their cookies if they didn't get paid every 2 weeks. And as I frame the question, how angry would you be if that had been generations where you never got paid? You were begging hand to mouth for food and clothing so that you could work and still not get paid. How angry would you be if that didn't happen, if you weren't getting paid for generations?
That's
and
right.
Then the opportunity arises where you have the opportunity to get some of that, and it's snatched away from you again. And more structures are put into place to make sure that you can't ever get that money back, those lost wages. And people say, oh, well, I had no responsibility for this. Stop it.
That's
you
right.
would be mad as hell.
That's right. And they would be getting their generational reparations, believe
Right.
me, because it would mean what? The downfall. I mean, it's an economic, it's slavery 101, and it began physically and continued to manifest itself psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, right? And if you give generations of people, if you push them under and try to keep your hand on them to keep them under, right? I mean, what are the likelihoods of them getting out from under that when they've already started 10 steps behind?
Right. It perpetuates the system. The analogy is always, we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road. Well, hello, if we just pick up the can at some point, we don't have to kick it 10 miles. We could have kicked it twice and said, fine, we're going to handle this right here, right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And on the flip side of that, though, for us as low melanated folks to really understand, it doesn't stop with giving up something, right? Oh, it's being taken from us if we share this, right? What we have to be able to see past the results of, let's say we do have less. I'm not saying we would have to have less. There's so many ways to play in this manipulated game to actually increase wealth and increase the quality of life and all of that. But if I have to give something up in order for my ability to come outside and not worry as much, to be able to share and be shared with while I'm doing that, then there's a whole different perspective and approach towards the reparation side of things, because the system's set up to repair, the legal system set up to repair. There's all these different things, but we are so afraid of losing that we can't even hear, see, or anything else past just being a part of the human interaction side of things that repair would actually bring to us as well. I don't have to hold on to it all, because if I do share, it's going to come back to me. I'm not going to have so much worry that somebody's actually trying to take it, because we're all participating in this.
Agreed. Citibank, their research arm, CITI City, talked about several years ago that the U.S. economy lost $16 trillion because of racial discrimination. Racism has an economic cost. $16 trillion. Trillion. we would make everyone better.
And the sad part is we don't care, because that just means you didn't get it. I don't care how much it hurts me, because you didn't get it is more important and more on my mind. And that is the most insane thing, that I was willing to hurt myself and keep the fire up, or whatever it is that's going on that's hurting us all, because at least I know that's the only way I can figure out how to hurt you. And I've spent so little time on just being the best version of myself that my only knowledge of this competition, I think we're in, this race, is to make sure that I keep you suppressed.
Right. I was going to go further on that and say, I completely agree with that, because even beyond the whole, as long as you don't get it, I think in some people does exist the fear of like, uh-oh, what if he had the ability or she had the ability to be equal and fair to me in regards to opportunities and stuff? Then I might actually have to work. Then I may not be able to rest on my laurels or rest on, my parents or my upbringing or the name associated to who I am. Right now, there's so much more that I have to bring to the table, because at the end of the day, we know for certain that even being held down, we've been resilient. So imagine the level of freedom without that hand on you, right? Imagine the ability to grow, to persevere, to thrive, to conquer, ownership, right? Expansion.
It's crazy, because for me, when you guys talk reparations, I'm just like, I wouldn't even know what that would look like within our community. It's just because my mind hasn't thought of that, because for me, it seemed like such a far thought to even exist the way it would happen. Because, like you said, JD, no one wants to give up anything and feel like they're at a loss to make others catch up. So it's a great conversation that needs to be had. So I can't wait to just tune in. And if we're going to be talking about this every day, day to day, things that affect me, where, like you said, if I go in the store and I forget my wallet, and some small things like that as a Black man, that is just my day to day, where I overlook and be like, oh, that's something I should actually pay attention to, the way I feel about that, and not just normalize it as I have been doing. You know what I mean? So it's a beautiful way when you look at it that way. For sure. Now, make sure you guys tell everybody where they can find you on social media. I do want everyone to follow you that's been on the live right now, listening to us. All your handles. I know, Kory, you have a site. JD, you also have a site as well.
JD, go ahead.
No, all right, I will, because I like yours better. So Race for What, almost everything, raceforwhat.com. Race for What is the Instagram, although I haven't been on there in a while. The audio book is taking forever to be approved on the upload, but it is coming. And so really, Race for What Twitter, when I get back on the social media front, it's all about kind of Race for What, or JD Mass, Psy-D, as in PSYD, is the other
as in doctor.
Yes, as in doctor. And the thing I'm really looking forward to doing, and while we're having this conversation, it was kind of hitting me that I would love to figure out how to do it with you all, is go out on this college tour kind of thing and really start speaking to these youth. And who better to host something than VPR radio at the colleges? Kory and JD, I started to talk about that. I got
the Brooklyn College plug, so just let me know. I'm DJing from 1,500 people, and I have a few things in this school that I work with, so let me know.
All I need is to get up there, so let's figure that out.
Definitely, let's do that. All we need is one mic, right? Nas told us.
That's a fact.
Kory?
Yes, KoryMade.com, and I need to revamp my site. Many apologies. But if you go find me on Facebook, I am on there, and I do a nightly microcast, and I've been doing that now for 1,608 consecutive nights. So every night I talk extemporaneously for the past 5 years. I have also launched Word of the Day with Kory May on TikTok and Facebook Reels. I need to port that over to Instagram right now.
Yes.
But it's all happening. The most important thing that we can do is educate ourselves. And if we are not educating ourselves, we are setting ourselves up to be manipulated easily. So with Word of the Day with Kory May, I bring up brand new words. I talk about their article of speech. I give a definition. I use it in a sentence. Well, their definition, their etymology, where did it come from? Then I give it a sentence and ask people to put a sentence in the comments down below.
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant. I'll be
using TikTok for better use.
That's what I'm saying. Finally, a TikTok that I can relate to.
There's tons of good people out there creating content that's educational in nature. And if we don't use social media to educate, then we start paying attention to the lowest common denominator stuff, which is gossip. And that's fine for some people, but it doesn't thrill me. I've got enough of my own concerns to be worrying about Ashton and Mila supporting Danny Masterson. And if we are trying to move ourselves forward, we need to be monetizing these things and saying, how do I use social media, something that has such a great influence on everyone around us? How do I use these channels to enlighten, entertain, inspire, persuade, monetize? How do I do that?
I say that all the time because, you know, I think people have come to a point, especially if they've been on social media for a long time. I'll see people complain like, oh, wow, I'm tired of seeing this or that. And I tell them all the time as a response, though, but what are you following? Who are you following? Right? You have to be very intentional about not just the content that you're creating, but who you're following, what you see, because that's only going to trigger that algorithm further for them to send more advertisements like that. So if you're looking at fights and stuff, you're going to see more of that. And of course, it's mentally going to take a toll on you, even if you're talking positively every day. If you're watching those videos that are giving you those negative connotations, you're going to see more of that and you're going to perpetuate it, whether you think so or not. So you have to be very intentional in everything that you do, the way that you speak, what you follow, what you consume, right? What you put your energy to, because it affects out more than our everyday, it affects our output. Our input is always going to affect our output. So I love that. I'm definitely going to go and follow you. I love words, learning new words, writing. So that's my vibe. I'm going to follow Kory. And guys, make sure that you are following both of these gentlemen.
One last thing on this topic. We live in the golden age of communication. We are able to do things and reach global audiences in a way that we could never have done last century. And that was 23 years ago. We are able to reach out and connect globally with cell phones, laptops, desktops. It's just amazing. So why aren't we using it to uplift and edify?
It's all about the approach, right? The approach dictates so much. We say, oh, and technology is taking jobs away. Well, one, what could that do to our quality of life if we're not having to work so hard? But if the approach of the system is to stranglehold you into needing money, into needing these jobs, into demoralizing you throughout the process, then the approach is different. The approach to social media, like you said, if we approach it why can't social interaction be about learning from each other instead of gossiping? It's those two levels of spiritual vibrations that we have to really, it comes back down to going back to the cause and how are we approaching to get the effects that we want.
Guys, you heard it here first on VPR. The Same Difference podcast will be coming to a screen near you. I'm excited. I know a bunch of our followers should just subscribe. We love JD every time he comes on VPR, and now you brought along Kory May. So you're another part of the family. I look forward to having you guys back on another episode. Seriously, man. Thank you for taking time out today.
That's right. We definitely have you guys back after your first episode. We want to hear from you and bring you back and have another amazing conversation.
Let's do it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
As always. Love to VPR. Appreciate you.
We love you too, JD.
It's all love, JD, and it's all love, Kory, man. We're gonna lock in, my brothers. You guys have a blessed day.
Big facts. Mwah. Mwah.
Hey, VPR. I'm looking forward to that podcast. That was amazing. Their energy is unmatched.
Yeah.
And their life stories that they're gonna bring to that microphone or that screen. It's gonna be A1.
I love that dynamic. I feel like it's going to carry over to so many different people that can relate to both of these gentlemen, you know, and that's what we're always talking about, right? When you create conversations that are difficult to have in a safe space, you offer people that space to be able to express themselves, that's where the healing begins. So I'm super excited to see where this takes them and the discussions go, and then we bring it right back here to VPR.
And VPR, I just met someone from Iowa. I don't think I ever met someone from Iowa. I've never asked someone from Iowa, are you from Iowa? But I met someone from Iowa today. I'm gonna walk around with that t-shirt and I feel good. I made a friend in Iowa. I made a friend in Iowa. Call it what you call it.
Iowa.
So VPR, I will see you here next Thursday. Pay attention to our Spotify playlist where I am bringing the newest of music to our playlist so you could just diversify your listening experience. Now, Kiana.
Amen. That's all we got to say. Diversify your listening experience with VPR Radio, and we will see you next week. Love you all for watching. Mwah.